Good evening, John and Risotto here, along with George Batista. Welcome to Counterparts, and we are very excited this evening because we've been doing this great thing where we've been talking about our passion, which has always been music. And since we were kids, we've loved music, and we're diving in different ways. Now, a lot of the topics that we're going to be talking about, you probably can find a gazillion videos on YouTube discussing the same subjects, but we're going to be different because it's us. And it's was that
And they're probably not Puerto Rican.
yeah, they're not Puerto Rican, right? Two Puerto Ricans from the Bronx talking about modern day music and old music and all music all the time. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. So anyway, stick around. We'll be right back. Think. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us this Tuesday evening. It is June 20th, 2023, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central. It's 8 p.m. in Eastern Standard Time. If you're in the Pacific, who asked you? I'm just kidding. If you're in the Pacific, it's about 5 o'clock. So, come on down over here.
Yeah.
Why you over back there? But yeah, we've been having George and I've been talking a lot, right? The last couple of weeks about
Yes.
music and we talked a lot about last week as well about finding our passion and our voice. And one of the reasons why we started this was because we like the subject of Star Trek, right? And we thought we can talk about Star Trek for hours, which we can. But there's something that we can talk about even longer than that, and that's music. You know, and that's one of the things that we have has always bonded us. And really, my life on a daily basis, it's always about music. I don't go a day without listening to music, right? Do you go a day without? I
No,
mean, I don't go a day.
absolutely not.
I have not gone a day, even when I was sick. Even if I'm sick and I got a cold and I'm home, I'm laying down, I got the music playing. You know what I mean? I'm in the
Yes.
kitchen cooking. I just cooked some food. I had the music playing. I mean, always. It's a big part of our lives. So we decided to kind of do a little, not necessarily change of our show, but we do want to discuss music a little bit further. We want to dive into subjects and things that George and I talk about that are interesting to us and hopefully to you, and hopefully get your input and get your, what do you think about it, and get you know your viewpoints on it, because I think that that's, especially people, we're musicians, so obviously we're coming from two different sides. We're music lovers and listeners. We're also players. And then there are people that are just listeners.
Right.
There are people who actually don't love music, but listen to it and they know who certain people are, but they can't tell you certain things.
Mhm.
My wife is a perfect example. She loves music, you know what I mean? But, I sometimes I'm shocked at some of the things that she won't know, but I love her. She's a good person. But she doesn't dive into the music the way we do. Like, we know the drummers of
Yes.
like the famous musician, like
Yeah.
Eric Clapton's drummer and bass
Yeah.
players, and
Yeah.
we know those guys. We get really deep into that's why our guests were Steve Smith from
Mhm.
the drummer from Journey. Why? Because he's one of the greatest drummers that ever lived.
Yes.
Kenny Aronoff, another great drummer,
Yep.
and Kevin Eubanks, great guitar player. So these are guys that aren't, maybe people aren't just talking all about them all the time, but they are legends. And to us, they're like everything, right?
Yes.
So, and we will be doing those interviews, in the future. As of right now, this is it. We got us talking about stuff. Now, before we get started on all of that, we do want to give some love to our sponsor that's been with us for quite a while now. I think we're celebrating a year, and
Hmm.
want to say thank you. So,
All
boys, take it.
right. Yes. So the Counterpart Show is brought to you by Wellness Resources, a family owned and operated nutritional supplement company providing the highest quality, clinically formulated supplements since 1985. Find out why they are the top choice of not only this individual, but individuals all around the world. Check out myvitaminresource.com for all the fantastic high quality supplements that they offer. And don't forget to take advantage of their monthly specials. And on top of that, if you enter the promo code Counterparts, you will get free shipping on your order. So at the end of the day, if you want to know what supplements I use and recommend, and health conscious individuals all around the world recommend, check out Wellness Resources again at myvitaminresource.com.
Cool. And the June sale.
Yes, their June sale, by the way, 25% off their sleep and stress supplements. And by the way, for those of you who are interested in that information, if you check out my show, I talk a lot about stress. So it might help you a little bit.
Makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. I usually talk a lot about stress, but in my sleep. I need something to help with both stress and sleep. Yes. So like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about some music. We're going to be talking about the difference between stealing music and being inspired by it. This is something that Georgia is really good at listening to a song that sounds like another thing. Like he just always had that thing. I think it's, mild autism or something, but I think he's just really functional at that. And he's really, really, really good.
I don't know if I can argue with that.
No, I don't think you can. He's really good at just picking out a song that it may be the song that's in the same key. It may have the same chord structures. It may have the same melody line. Melody lines I can do good with, but chord structures and all that stuff, it's very interesting. So as we all know, or not we all know, but it's been in the news. Maybe you do know, maybe you don't know. Ed Sheeran was sued by the Marvin Gaye estate because of saying that that he stole "What's Going On," the song "What's Going On," and his song what is it? Out Loud. What's it?
Thinking Out Loud.
Thinking Out Loud, right? So that song. Now, I don't know, George. What are your thoughts about this overall? I mean, just both songs.
Yes.
But do they sound alike to you?
There are certain similarities in the song. Okay, the basic 4-chord structure, as far as the songs, they are very similar when you put them together. And actually, Rick Beato did that, by the way. He put them together.
I saw that.
And so that part is similar. Okay, but when you look at the melody and you look at obviously the lyrics and all that, then it completely changes and goes to another song. Right. So again, there are some similarities, but there's similarities in everywhere since the dawn of time in music.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what I was. That's kind of like my viewpoint too. And I thought also that the chord structures being the same cannot be. You cannot claim a chord structure. You can't claim, like, it's like saying, I own the D chord to the C to the G.
Right.
That's my, now you can do the G, the C to the D, but you can't do the D, the C, and that to me is like, that's not something that is going to be workable for anybody, because notes, right? Notations are almost like mathematics, right?
Right.
A scale is like a mathematical equation, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so when you have a mathematical equation, you can't steal a number. You can't say I'm the number this and that's that. And just like music is a vibration. You can't steal a vibration,
Correct. Just a quick correction. It's actually "Let's Get It On," not "What's Going On."
Let's get it on. What's going on? Listen, what's going on? Let's get it on. Let's do it all.
Yeah. And you're right. You're absolutely right. But then, you can get into why this happens. But, the point is that what did they do? What did they have him do? He was in the courtroom and he went through literally with his guitar.
He played the song.
And he played not only that, he played 10 songs.
Right.
That all had the
same thing.
Yeah, that all had the same exact chord structure. And again, if you look at, half the songs in the 50s, and we've done it. I mean, I had a friend named Charlie, and John, you met him, who's a good, pretty good guitar player as well, very accomplished. He would do that. He would actually take all these songs from the 60s and blend one into the other, or from the 50s and 60s. He would blend one into the other because they all had the same chords.
Right.
So he would, I mean, literally 5 or 6 songs he would run through because they were all the same.
Right. And it's also the era. That's why those were
Right.
popular in the era,
Exactly.
I was actually looking at doing I'm going to do a little, I got my guitar here. I'm going to do a demonstration on something that I thought would 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 kind of feed into that as well,
Right.
and to show, what I always thought. Well, actually, I never thought, oh, they stole that. I always thought it was a progression. Like, you can't steal a progression. You know what I mean?
Right,
You
right,
just
right.
can't, right? But if Ed Sheeran would have lost, then you can't steal a progression per that
Correct.
case.
Correct.
That was a very severe case. I mean, that was, people don't realize how devastating that would have been to the music industry had he lost that case, because now everyone from everyone who owns the music for someone famous is going to go back and start suing, because not the artist sometimes doesn't own their publishing, right? It could be owned by a corporation. It
Mhm.
could be owned by just a silent partner entity that nobody even knows, and they make money by selling those artists' songs, to
Right.
movies and to whatever. And you can make a lot of money if you own the publishing to a very famous person, right? I
Right.
think it's like $1 million just to get a Beatles song, just a few seconds of a Beatles song. It's like $1 million for
Right.
your film. So it's a very lucrative thing. But had that occurred, and had he lost the case, it would have been devastating to the music industry, because all these artists now, or all these people that own this publishing, including the big companies, which are all about the money, now will be able to go out and get somebody.
Exactly.
So this was a big case.
But I also think, and I was thinking about this as as we were kind of talking about this whole subject as well, that even the lawsuits itself, just the concept of suing somebody for those things, because again, it wasn't just Ed Sheeran. Led Zeppelin got sued, Lady Gaga got sued, right? Robin Thicke got sued, right? Many lawsuits. I mean, I know there was more than that, but I'm just saying that it's happening now at a record pace, right?
Yeah.
Think about what that does to the younger artists
Yeah,
who
the
are coming up,
songwriter. Yeah.
the songwriters, right? Because now what are they doing? They're looking at this and saying, great. So now if I write these 4 chords that I'm inspired by because of whoever 30 years ago,
Right.
there's a possibility that I may get sued. Now I may have to either, I may have to change what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
destroying the creative
Exactly. It's the
creative
journey,
process.
or it's like, okay, because and it's a double-edged sword, because this is the way I was thinking about it. The music today is very simple, right? Again, a lot of it is based off of those simple chords. It's, there's nothing complicated the way music was written 30, 40 years ago, right? So if the artist now says, well, I can't do that, but so maybe I should change it. So maybe I should put a diminished chord in there. Maybe I should put an inversion in there. Maybe I should put it in a minor, or whatever the case may be. Well, that's going to change your song, make it more complicated, which is less of a chance of it becoming a hit, because nobody's writing songs like that anymore.
Right.
So you have this kind of weird
Yeah, and
dynamic happening.
I think one of the saddest parts is also the fact that it's going to second guess an artist,
Right. Exactly.
right? Like what you were saying, but it's going to second guess them to either not do it, or to do
Yes.
something that would have been successful had they stuck with it.
Right.
But they
And now it's
second-guess
not.
themselves, and now it's not, because
Exactly.
they're doing something that's not them.
Right.
And that's the thing. We're inspired by what we listen to.
Yep.
That's the whole point of music. That's the whole point of storytelling. Music is storytelling, right? Songwriting is storytelling in short form. Same thing with film, right? You tell a story. Well, if I tell a love story, have there been other love stories? Have there been like my last film had, an upset employee? Has there been others? You know what I mean? There's thousands. You know what I mean? You can't really, of course, the dialogue is different. There's a whole bunch of different things, but the sorry, hold on a second. The idea that you can't now create what was really in your heart to begin with, that's where really it gets tragic, and that's where it gets really sad. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to do a quick just a quick demo. I'm not gonna like play a lot of songs, but
John's gonna play for us.
I was gonna do Tommy from the top, but and then I was gonna end off with 2112. But I think I'm gonna. So okay, so the progression that George and I always we've talked about this, by the way. This is and we've talked about this 30 years ago.
Yes.
So here's the progression, right? Now I'm gonna just play the bass notes of this progression, which everybody knows. Can you hear that?
Yeah. Yep. Right.
Okay,
Right.
so I came up with that. Let's say I came up with that, right? So right? Okay,
Right,
so
yes.
that's one. Now
Yeah.
okay. Now people smile and tell me I'm the lucky one. Right?
Yep.
Right? Okay, now right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what was that, 5 songs?
Yeah.
5 songs, right? So the 5 songs with the same exact progression, same exact the same exact progression, right? So
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
basically it doesn't even change positions. So it doesn't
Right.
go right. That's a different one.
Correct.
It goes right.
Right.
So my point on the whole another thing that has in common is that I was talking about the era, right? And that was the 70s. Almost
Yes.
every single song that I played there, right?
Yes.
So in the 50s, you had the 3-chord progression, the 3 chords, right?
Yep.
In the 60s, that kind of went over into the 60s. Of course, you had the Beatles that changed the game for everything, right? So
Of course.
Beatles is a whole other subject. We can't talk about them. They did that on their first album, right? But then they progressed and did things that nobody else did, right?
Exactly.
So that's a different story. But when you listen, but who were they inspired by, right? They were inspired by all the guys at the blues, all
Yes.
the guys, down south, where I is right now. And I think that part of the lesson learned by the Ed Sheeran situation was the fact that I saw an interview with him and he was kind of like really devastated by this. You know what I mean?
He was going to quit. He was going to literally quit.
He said, if I lose this thing, I'll quit, because then what else can he do? You know what I mean? And I like Ed Sheeran. I never had, I liked that first, chunk of records that he had. Songs were really great songs,
Right.
And I also think he's sincere. You know what I mean? Like there was enough information on Ed Sheeran to go back in his career to see his tweet when he was a kid playing in the streets, and because he's that young where he still had Twitter, and he tweeted out, I have big things in my future. This is just the beginning, but I have big things in my future. And he's playing in the streets. Nobody's, he's just Ed Sheeran and by himself with a guitar on the streets as a kid. So there's enough information where you can know that this guy really worked hard.
Yes.
Another thing was he was on the Howard Stern show, and he talked about how there's a clip on YouTube that you can watch Ed Sheeran when he first started singing, and he said, I could not sing. I had a terrible voice, and he played it, and even Howard was like, whoa. He's like, oh, great. Okay. He's like, yeah, that was rough. But he said, yeah, I couldn't sing. But it took him 4 years. And that song, the A Train, what's that song? He has a famous song.
I forgot it.
But anyway, that song came out like 4 years later, and he's, what I mean. So it took him 4 years to work from like not being able to sing to working on his craft to just continuing to get that good where he has a hit record and then sells millions, and now he goes up on stage by himself with one guitar and his gadgets and does these huge giant shows to like thousands and thousands of people.
But is it easier now for this to happen because of how simplistic music has become?
No, I think it's easier now because we have social media.
Well, yeah,
Because
social media has
we
obviously.
have we have another tool to get the stuff out there. Um, I think that it's not easier because the music, a D chord today, right, is a D chord 50, 60 years ago. Elvis Presley played a D chord just like I did. I just played a D chord. It's the same chord, same fingering, same sound, same tuning. Everything is exactly the same. So what you're saying is music is not necessarily simpler. It's
I,
the way it's produced is simpler. Now,
yeah,
if
but
you listen to top 20, you'll
Mhm.
find songs that have a little bit more structure. There are a lot of it computer driven, the studio driven, very produced, very high fidelity, which is sometimes for the ear. For me, it's too high. I like the softer sounds. It's sort of like film. Like I don't like 8K screens. I don't like 4K. It
Right,
looks like a soap opera. It looks so clear and sharp. I
right.
can't watch the Godfather like that. I need to watch it the way it was intended to be watched, like film, right? So it's the same thing with music. That's what's being developed today. I don't think chord structures have simplified.
Yes, but I think okay, and I agree with the production. Absolutely, the production, because you can take the basic chord structures and you're throwing a million things on top of it to make this huge thing. Everything's a huge thing now, right?
Right,
But except for maybe Adele, who can sing just with a piano. Okay, but
right,
that's
but
again, there are outliers to this.
right.
Okay, but if you take music as a whole, okay, as far as the like top 40, okay, it's basic music with a million things thrown on top of it. But when you look at it, how many people are using how many people are writing songs with with that are really creative, meaning, okay, so we can only compare it to what came before, right? If Steely Dan came out today, nobody would know who they are. Okay, um,
Just on visuals alone, though.
just well, even forget about. I mean, think about how they wrote their songs. Okay,
I know.
Steely Dan is actually an outlier at that time
Yeah.
they came out because
They're all liars.
they were so unique in the way they played, because they used all these jazz and diminished and crazy chords in the middle of
Right.
their funk tunes. Okay, so they're completely out, but they wouldn't exist today, right?
Right.
So,
Or they or they
songs that
would
Sting
exist.
songs that Sting wrote, that Billy Joel wrote, they wouldn't exist today because a lot of them were too complicated, and
Right.
today they don't write songs like that.
Or they're just not. They would still exist, and they would
Well,
still have
they
fans.
wouldn't
They
exist
would
in the form
not at
in
the
the
level.
not at the level that, and that's what I mean by
So,
exist,
but I
meaning that they
also
wouldn't
think,
be.
and I saw Rick. We talk about Rick Beato a lot because we follow him and stuff. But he does a lot of these top.
Yeah,
What's at the top 10 right now? He breaks down these songs and stuff, and some of them he's like, oh, okay, this is interesting. It's different. Um, he's never that impressed. Very rarely he's impressed. I don't think any of us have been that impressed with the top 10 stuff. I mean, I know hip hop has been on a downfall.
right,
As a matter of fact, first time in what 30 years not that a hip hop album hasn't been on the top
right,
something. I can't remember. I just saw the statistic somewhere, but first time like in 30 years or something. Hip hop was always on the top of everything.
right.
It's sinking. I think it has to do with a little bit of the degradation of it. Some of the it's degrading. It's degrading. It's always had a sense of wanting to say a message. It's always had
Yes,
to see the
yes,
whole rap was a music of outcry,
right,
music of frustration.
correct,
It was people really expressing the injustices, right?
correct,
That's what hip hop was. And you can go all the way up to NSW. You can go up to KRS One. You can go up to well, all these what's the other guy's name? The Ice Cube and all those guys.
Yeah, NWA and all those guys.
NWA. That's what I meant to say. What did I say?
NSW.
NSW. That's the wrestling.
No, isn't it the shoe store? Oh no, that's DSW.
I just got some DSW for my son. Um, so DSW had the best hip hop with their shoes back in the days. No, but I mean, right. It was NW.
Yeah, it was
And right.
with attitude.
You can't say it, but yeah.
And with attitude. Yes.
Right. So the frustration that they had, it came out in the music, and sometimes it was, it was rough and people didn't like it, and it had to get the black label on it and all that stuff happening. But then somewhere along the line, it didn't become that anymore. It became degrading of other human beings. It became degrading of themselves. It became degrading of sex. Sex was thrown in. Like, I mean, it was always like, yeah, that girl likes me, and I like her, and yeah, what's up, whatever. It always was, obviously, because that's what songs have always been about, wooing the girl, right? I mean, you can go back to the 20s, and it was like, come on, girl, get. That's a real song, but you can go back to what's his name, Minnie the Moocher, right? And Cab Calloway's stuff, and he always had girls, and always talked about.
But you know what? When hip hop is thinking about hip hop, you know what the best example of the way that music is being written now?
Girl, I like your booty. Girl, I like your booty. Damn, you got me with that. So a while back I said that. I don't remember me saying it, but I was making a point about something, and George just decided to make it into a GIF clip. That's funny. Yes, so that is definitely the perfect example of hip hop where it's going today. Girl, like your booty. I think that could be a hit.
Yeah, somebody might steal that.
Exactly.
It might be sampled on somebody's song.
As long as I get a little royalties, I'll be fine with it. So, yes, but I think at that point, I was making the same point.
Yes.
About songs that just take something very simple and then make it into, it degrades the quality of the music, or at least the genre, right? So because if you go to jazz music, jazz is the same today as it was 50 years ago.
Correct.
A lot of it is played the same. I mean, when you hear Steve Gadd and Steve Smith and all these guys, you know what I mean? Yep. Go back and listen to Buddy Rich doing that in the 40s. You know what I mean? Same thing. The blues, authentic blues. I mean, there are guys out there right now that are still doing authentic blues. Buddy Guy, Buddy Guy. Joe Bonamassa, those guys, they're still doing a Robert Cray, which I just heard is kind of new some stuff, great stuff. Authentic blues, right? Those guys. The new guys that are doing it, the younger guys, Johnny Lang and Kenny Wayne Shepherd, they're also doing authentic blues. Correct. They're not dirtying it. You know what I mean? Right. You know what I mean? They're not dirtying it. They're keeping that same integrity with the music. Rock and roll, heavy metal, some of it, you can say maybe went a little bit awry at some point, but really when you look at rock music, it's kind of the same. I mean, it's kind of, a lot of it is similar. We're talking about pop music.
Yeah, pop because music, pop music goes through its permeations, right? It goes through, think about it, look back, right? Go back to the 70s, right? I mean, in the 70s, you could find Stairway to Heaven and name a 70s dance tune on the same billboard,
right?
Because those that was pop, that was top 40 at the time. You had huge diversity in that. Okay, again, you don't have that today.
No, a lot of the stations also,
now they have their own stations now, right? Think about how that changed, especially in the 80s, right? Because then you had NEW now all of a sudden had the rock stuff. So they took rock out of the mainstream and gave it its own station. They took jazz, gave it its own stations, right? And now everything's straight pop. The only thing that kind of bled into pop later on is country, right? Because then
Right.
you started having the country crossover with the pop, which is still happening to this day.
Right. You had Kenny Rogers and
Right.
Garth Brooks later on.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Um,
But my point was that I still think that you're feeding today's young listeners a steady diet of music that is pretty straightforward, pretty straight ahead.
I'll say
And
it.
again, and
If you
but
don't, if you
so
don't want to say it, I'll say it. If you don't
but
want to say it, I'll say it.
yeah,
They're
I'd say it.
feeding our children and anybody youth right now. They're feeding them the most mediocre, the most
Mediocre.
mediocre music that can be put together with the technology that they have,
Correct.
and
And
it's
and
getting
but
worse
this
because of AI.
and yes, but the songwriting is also different too, right? Because now, but again, how many people are sitting down taking a month to write a song?
Not
They're
a
not
month,
doing.
but they are doing it. If
Yeah,
you
but
go
they're
back,
not doing it.
you look
Yeah,
at
they're
John Legend, you look at Ed Sheeran, you look
y-
at people like uh not Vanilla Ice,
Vanilla Ice.
not Millie Vanilli, which is the one. Um, but anyway, if you look at some hip hop guys, they're doing some of the legendary guys. They're still
Mhm.
doing some stuff. They sit down and they do right. Country artists definitely. I mean,
Country artists, yes,
here
country artists are different.
in Nashville, there's writer circles that if you're lucky enough, you get invited or
Right,
these big writer circles, and they'll sit there, and there are people that have written some of the greatest hits will sit around and play their newest hits in
right.
these circles and stuff. So there are people that still doing that. It has a lot to do with, and I'm not really saying, I'm just kidding around with the mediocre music. What I'm basically saying is that the music is so simplistic because it's easy to produce, it's easy to put out there, and that's where the money is. If I write a song, I'm spending 6 months to write these songs, or not even 6 months. I mean, the first album takes you 15 years to put together, right? The second album
Right.
takes you 6 months. So it's like the first album, you'd spend 10 years putting this album together, and and now you have to go sell it. Well, you want to get the highest, you want to get paid. You are an artist that's written, you own the publishing. If you're lucky enough, you get a record deal, you can still own some of your publishing, whatever the deal is, right? That you wrote it. Now, if I get a guy on TikTok who happens to have 1 million views because he goes, "Girl, like your booty, girl, I like your booty," whatever the
Right.
hell he's doing, right? And he gets plucked out of TikTok world and given a couple of songs that some dude wrote, that afternoon, and they get up there and they have all the marketing machines, and they go and they make $1 million because the audience is watching TikTok and they're watching this one guy do this thing. They were fascinated with him when he was in his house doing it. So now somebody's investing money in this dude or
But
gal.
those are but those are far and few and far between.
Right. They don't stick around. My
They
point
don't.
is
Yeah,
they don't stick
you're
around. Yeah.
correct. They don't
They
stick
don't
around.
stick around. There's no longevity in it. But my point is that because there's no longevity in it, this is why the music that you hear is being put out there. Because a lot of it is really just not strong. It would not be accepted 40 years ago, 50 years ago.
Right.
It wouldn't be accepted. I mean, guys were writing. I mean, you talk about Carole King, James Taylor, Elton John, Billy Joel, the Eagles, you know what I mean? Sting, the
Stevie Wonder.
Police, Stevie Wonder. These guys today are still killing it. I mean? They're still killing it. Paul Simon and Garfunkel, all those guys are still crushing it today. So, but they own a lot of their music.
Right.
They're very much in control of their brand. So
Yeah.
imagine if somebody could control the brand, build a brand, own the brand, squeeze the brand to death, and then throw the brand away because there's another one on the conveyor belt.
Right.
And they're just running that thing.
Right.
They're just running that thing. So, there are a couple of, I have, in fairness to some of the new artists, there are stuff that I listen to that maybe, some of it is on the top 40, or top 10, whatever. One artist in particular that I thought was really, really good. I'm going to see, you can start chiming in. I'm going to find this artist.
No, just another thing I wanted to bring up as far as just the lawsuits and stuff like that. One thing that has changed also is the longevity of royalties
Oh,
and
yeah.
and what you get for royalties versus what it used to be, right? Royalties don't pay the way they used to be,
No,
right?
nowhere at
I
all.
mean, well, think about how music has changed, right? Because now it's only the top few people that even can sell a million records,
Right.
right? Way back then, 30, 40 years ago, if your album was platinum, double platinum, and all this, albums don't do that these days, or very few, if
They
any,
can't. Yeah, I
do
mean,
that.
streaming services did, kill the album
They they
sales.
they kill that. Okay, so now these artists now, okay, they know already that the system is designed where you're not really going to make your music from your album straight out. You're just not, because
No.
by the time record companies take this and this,
Well,
and
it's always been that. That's always been
well,
the
that's
case.
been, but right, but that's been that. Okay, that's been
The,
that ever since
the,
the internet was around, right? Because think about it, people are now stealing music. You can go on YouTube and take anybody's music now. But what
true.
I'm saying is, you have to go out and tour now to make their money.
Right.
That's
But
where the money is.
even if you go back, you would get only like 7 cents a unit back in the days if you got a record deal. They would give you like $1 million up front, and then you ended up. And this happened to TLC. This happened to
Right, but
a
there are
lot of
one-hit
artists.
wonders from 1985 who were getting paid a good sum of money because their records are still being played.
Right, just touring.
Right. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
touring.
saying?
They get paid, they get royalties by that one song.
Yeah.
Um, but if you own the publishing, you
Well,
know,
that's the thing.
that's where the money is. If you own it,
Yes.
if the record company owns it, and when they sign you to a record deal, that is the deal. They
Correct.
own
Correct.
your publishing.
But what I'm saying is that part of that I'm just surmising like that, as that part of this also, of this whole thing of suing things, is part of, because the money has diminished in music in general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That there is a money piece to it as well. Not to, I honestly don't. I mean, Ed Sheeran is not sitting there going, let me see if I could rip off Marvin Gaye.
Right. I know.
He's not doing that.
It's so
Okay, I'm
dumb for him.
sorry, he's
It's so
not.
dumb. It's so dumb for him. For
But
anybody.
somebody's taking those two and going, wait a minute,
Right.
these things sound the same, so he must be ripping. I mean, Lady Gaga was getting sued, okay, because of that song that she did with what's his name, for the movie, right? With
A Star Is
The
Born.
Star Is Born, right? For the three chords, for the I'm falling, for
Yeah.
those three chords, the guy said that his song had those three chords, and therefore I should sue him. That's insane.
It doesn't even make any sense. What you just said right now sounds like Unforgettable too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Matter of fact,
Unforgettable.
I heard what song? Oh, you know the song Angie,
Uh,
Angie, right? Rolling Stones,
Rolling
right?
Stone. Yeah,
Okay. If you take the first 2 to 3 chords of that whole beginning progression there, it sounds exactly like Hotel California.
that's right. That's right.
Okay. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, you can take the chords of you know, gosh, um, "Wonderful Tonight" by Eric Clapton,
yes.
and um, Bob Dylan's "Knocking on Heaven's Door."
Hmm.
I mean, the
Yes.
same song.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
the same song.
Yep.
Same chords, everything. But yeah, one of the I was talking about Paramore. Do you know Paramore? You
Oh,
ever heard?
Paramore. Yeah, I actually like some of their songs. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're very, very creative.
Yeah.
They got some really, really cool things. So I mean, there's music out there being
There is.
made and being thought of. You know what I mean? Like
Chris
being thought
Stapleton.
of. Chris Stapleton. You know what I
He's
mean?
great.
Yeah, I
He's
love
great.
Chris Stapleton. I would listen to Chris Stapleton all the time in the car and stuff. And what's the there's another guy named Steve Forbert. Have you ever heard of him? Steve Forbert.
I'm familiar. Oh.
Yeah, he's got a song called Romeo's Tune, and I freaking love it. It's like he's got a very, very unique sound. Do you
Mhm.
know who? This is kind of a sort of non sequitur, but not.
Right.
Who I think was writing music that hasn't been really paid attention to for
Who's
for
that?
a really long time was Donny Osmond.
He's
So
still writing music?
yeah, Donny Osmond
Wow.
just finished a big tour in Vegas. He looks fantastic,
Of course.
sings incredible.
Right.
He's 70. He's 70, and his and I'm a huge Donny Osmond. I became a Donny Osmond fan, after, during Soldier of Love,
Okay.
during
Yeah.
that era.
Yeah.
But here's a perfect example. Soldier of Love. He records that record. Everybody in the studio is like, "That's a hit. That's a
Yeah.
hit." So like, yeah, but we can't tell them it's Donny Osmond.
Mm,
Nobody's gonna play it.
right.
So what they did, they created a name and they sent it to the to radio stations. And one radio station started playing it a lot. Everybody was calling it. Yeah, we still don't know who this guy is. They gave us this a mystery name of something, but we don't know who it is. Then it got out that it was Donny Osmond, and the rest is history. He had his major comeback. But think about that. This is a guy who was as big as Michael Jackson when with the Jackson 5, when Michael Jackson
Yeah.
and him were out.
Yes.
He was
Yes.
out there doing Puppy Love, and
Mm-hmm.
and Michael Jackson was doing whatever the song that he was doing, whatever ballads.
Right.
Ben.
Ben.
So they're both going back and forth, right?
Right. Right.
Becomes huge. Somewhere along the line, he became a laughing stock.
Mm-hmm.
He could not get a record deal. He got dropped and everything. He had a comeback. He did great. Now he's in Vegas, and he's like, he's awesome. And I follow him on social media. He's very, very religious.
Yeah.
He's very
Yes, he is.
wholesome.
Yes. So
You know?
families like
Yeah, he's very, he's a Mormon, and his whole family is Mormon, and he's very religious. So the industry going where it was going, they went towards, they decided, I don't know, this is my own 2 cents, but supporting Michael Jackson, who I love Michael Jackson, but I mean, Thriller was basically a demonic story about demons and dead people coming from the ground and that stuff, right? So they went that route, right?
Right, right.
Billie Jean is about a girl got pregnant. He said, "Not my kid." All right. Then you have Beat It, about people fighting on the subway. No, that's not the subway. That's sad.
It was in a pool hall.
Yeah, people fighting in a pool hall. Then Bad was people fighting in a subway.
In the subway.
Then Dirty Diana was people fighting in a nightclub. Right?
Right.
Dun, 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 dun,
But remember, then there was Heal the World.
Then there was Heal the World, right?
So at the end, he healed everyone.
That's true. No, I love Michael Jackson.
So do I.
He wrote the big song, the one to feed the world, not heal the world, feed the world.
No, Feed the World. Yeah.
What was that
No,
song?
you're talking about USA
the
for
World.
Africa.
We Are the World, right?
We Are the World. Yes. Yes, that's right.
So here's another thing that I look at sometimes, like, why couldn't they both have been just as big? You know what I mean? Donny Osmond had the moves. He was a great dancer. He was a great singer. You know what I mean? He looked fantastic. You know what I mean? So he had all the stuff. He dressed wild, just like Michael Jackson did during those eras. He was a whole package. So anyway, it just makes me sometimes a little bit. And of course, I'm one of the conspiracy guys. Those guys, the conspiracy guys, the ones that are always correct 18 months later. So, for me, it's like, what is it about the industry today that's promoting some of the artists that we see on the top 20 that, to me, are degrading? I'm sorry. I'm not talking about the artists themselves. I'm talking about how it's not feeding the soul. It's not feeding the soul of the world by making them want to. That's what music is, right? I mean, that's what music is. When you listen to Sting and you listen to Fragile, man,
yeah,
you know what I mean. It's Fields of Gold. What? You know what I mean? You just get like a feeling. You get this really good. When you and I listen to Rush, when I listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan, all that stuff fills us with something. Yes. And this music, if it's filling the kids with something, it's with hate, or it's with acceptance of something that's, to me, demonic. I'm sorry, folks. It's my little
That's
rant
John Henry Soto at
at
protonmail.com.
com.
Just in case. No,
And I'll
so
be here every week, whether people watch or not.
but that's it's an interesting thing that you talk about, like the Donny Osmond thing versus the Michael Jackson thing, right? Take a look at let's move forward to the last 15-20 years. Okay, let's last 20 years, maybe more. um Take a look at the one of the biggest artists on the planet right now, Taylor Swift. Okay, now she's got some good songs. I mean, she's got some. I'm not a huge Taylor Swift fan by any means. I don't really listen to her. I've liked her, some of her early stuff, but she was a girl that wrote hundreds of songs. Her main thing was standing up there with the guitar and just belting out those songs. She was like, at the time, what James Taylor was and still is, by the way. James Taylor's never going to be anything other than James Taylor, right?
Right.
But she would belt out a song with that guitar, and she was amazing, right? And she was heralded for that, right? Now, when you look at her thing, it's the biggest production on the planet.
Right.
There's a million dancers. There's a million pyrotechnics. She's in all these outfits. She's in costume changes and running around. And you know what I'm saying? So something goes from being that person just singing your thing to this whole thing, right? That really Madonna started and Britney Spears took it over. And then, that kind of
Janet
line.
Jackson,
Janet Jackson, actually, Janet Jackson was doing it.
Beyonce,
Beyonce was doing it, right? And that's where now, of course,
J-Lo. Let's not forget J-Lo, our Puerto
oh,
Rican, the Puerto
correct.
Rican queen.
But that whole piece, that whole thing is the top, is that's what gets to you, right? Okay, because how long would if people wanted, or her record company wanted her standing there singing a song with a guitar?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to argue with that because I like Taylor Swift. I think she's great. I think she's very creative in her songwriting. There's some songs that I thought, oh wow, that's really creative, the way she phrases certain things. Um, you know, I
I
think
still
that
think it gets lost, though.
it gets lost because you know we're living in a society where visual sells more.
Correct.
Visual
Correct.
production sells more,
And
but
the creativity of the song gets lost. To
correct.
me.
But now there's two artists that I will tell you that go up there, three artists actually, that go up there with just a guitar and can captivate 50,000 people.
Yes.
Bruce Springsteen,
Correct.
John Mayer, who just did it at the Forum. He's actually on tour doing, and
Correct.
Ed Sheeran.
Correct.
Males,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, why wasn't Taylor, who can play guitar and sing, allowed? Now, are there any other that we can think of, females? I mean, I could think of I'll say Melissa Etheridge, because I love Melissa Etheridge, right? She's fantastic. She gets up there with a guitar alone and she can just blow the place away. I know, I've seen her live. She's incredible.
We saw her with Sting.
We saw her. Oh yeah, that's right. I think about guitarists like Bonnie Raitt, Susan Tedaki, Derek, Derek Trucks'
Derek
wife.
Trucks' wife, yeah.
Right. I think about, I mean, but the simplicity of it, is with these three men that I mentioned.
But the only thing I would say about that is Springsteen was doing it since the 70s. Okay. So, I mean, Springsteen is always was selling out stadiums in the 70s and 80s. Okay. Right. So, Ed Sheeran is of the newer generation, because John Mayer was kind of in between that. Right. And then Ed Sheeran came out afterwards. Now Ed Sheeran is doing it, but to me, there's much fewer people that would be able to do that now.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Versus when Springsteen and or what's his name and do it again. Very few, like unless you've been already established, like the Springsteen and the James Taylors and these people who have their core following, who are going to sell out no matter where they go.
Right.
Okay. Ed Sheeran is captivating the newer generation.
But
And
that's what I'm saying. That's still
he's
a
the
good thing. That
outlier in that.
right, right. He's a liar. I think he's been lying. He stole that song. He is an outlier. No, I think that he is definitely the exception currently right now. And I'm a big John Mayer fan. I do
Right.
like what he does. I like his career because he's able to do whatever the hell he wants and do it good. But just to go up there with guitars and nothing else backing you up,
Yes.
you know, but not in a club, like in a stadium. You know what I mean? Insane, just amazing that Ed Sheeran can do that at this juncture right now. So it's people like Ed Sheeran, which I'm glad that he fought, and I'm
Yes.
glad that he went public. You
Yes.
know what I mean? And I'm glad that you know what I mean because I mean sometimes people are accused of stuff, and you're
Mhm.
like, well, why isn't this person at least saying something? Can you at least make some kind of say you didn't do it?
Right.
You know, there's some people that have been accused of some much more horrendous things, but they don't say anything. They just stay quiet.
Correct.
I would
Correct.
be like, listen, I don't know where this is coming from. You know, this is not the case, and I'm going to fight this all the way to court. I'm going to make sure that my name is cleared. That's what I would say, and that's what
Yes.
Ed did. And I'm really glad that he did because he really. And then after he won, he got up on top of the car. Remember that?
Yeah.
Did a
Yep.
song on top of the car, and
Yep.
I was like, yeah, yes. Show people that you can't mess around with artists.
Exactly. And I think that the win is going to help the artists in general. That win. Again, Led Zeppelin won theirs as
The
well.
wind.
The win.
Oh,
The win.
okay.
That win. Well, the win could help too, you know. Have you ever made a video with wind? Um, but like the way Ed Sheeran won, the way Led Zeppelin won.
You still want to laugh. I know your face. So, I I know George's face
I
when he's
can't
trying not to
show
laugh.
with you like trying to be straight because it's like ridiculous. Like back when we were like 16. Um, but no, what I'm saying is that the fact that Led Zeppelin won, the fact that Ed Sheeran won, you know, these folks, because then that gives a little bit of hope to the artist that says, okay, well, then at least there is some hope because you're right.
Right.
If they would have lost that,
It
all
would have
how
been
many
devastating.
artists? Because again, and I go back to the same thing. The artists are not going to be these young artists are not going to be going, da, 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 da. They're not going to be doing that. Okay. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying?
Right.
They're going to be, a
Yeah.
lot of these artists are going to be basic, doing their basic stuff and layering everything on
Yeah.
top of that.
You know, the thing that amazes me, and you and I have talked about this, is the risk that artists took back in the
Correct.
70s, 80s. Just, I mean, I was thinking about this the other day listening to Billy Joel in the car, and he had a song that should not have been out when he put it out for the longest time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's a song that should have been out like in the 60s or something,
Correct.
a doo-wop song. And it
Correct.
was a huge hit,
Huge.
huge
Huge.
hit.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? But he just took that risk. You know what I mean? He took a risk with the what's the we didn't start the fire.
That's right. He actually never liked that song.
He didn't like it because it was so
It was just
repetitious. You know, and then um scenes from an Italian restaurant
Mm.
has like 3 or 4 different
There's like 4
sections,
songs in
4
there, yeah.
songs in there. I mean, what a risk to take that, and you know when you listen to radio, they play the whole damn thing.
Yes,
They play
yes.
the whole thing. They
Yeah, you
don't cut it.
cannot play that whole song
How
because
can you
it's
not play
it's
that?
all relevant to it.
Right.
Rush took a risk with 2112.
Well, that was their last risk that
That
they
was their last risk, and they just said,
said,
"F it, we're gonna throw
"We're
it out
gonna
there,
do
and whatever
exactly
happens,
what we
happens."
want."
Boom.
Yeah, it was a
Okay?
huge hit, huge hit. So I wish that, and maybe there are, and again, you and I are just like seeing only the thin veneer over the industry and not really paying attention to what's really underneath. Maybe underneath we just have to pay a little bit close attention. I mean, like I said, that like Paramore, I really like them because they write really weird stuff and it's like
Yes.
really
Yes.
creative. You know what I
Yes.
mean? But like country music is country music.
It's always gonna be that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
You're never
very
gonna change it. Yeah.
it's yeah, the stories are similar, but they're a little bit different. They've changed up a little bit here and there. the melody lines are different, but the overall structure is what that is, But then you go back to like listen to Hotel California, or you listen to Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, or anything on Physical Graffiti.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? It's all just bizarre, really risky things. They did it because that's what they wanted to do, not
Exactly.
because they thought that that's what would sell.
But you know what we need now, in my opinion? We
Hot
need,
chocolate. No.
besides that, we need a new Nirvana.
We need
Kurt
something.
Cobain, for
We
example,
need
because
something like that.
right, Nirvana completely
I mean, that was a
changed
day that would live
everything. Okay,
infamy.
changed everything. And if you listen to Nirvana stuff, you listen to Kirk. I mean, even Soundgarden stuff, right? All that. They're actually
All
their
the Seattle
chords.
bands.
Yeah, they didn't do simple stuff. Stone Temple Pilots,
No.
their stuff was
People think
very
that because they did the drop down D, or any
exactly.
musician
Yeah,
out there, if you drop down the D, you can play chords
right.
like with one finger and stuff like
Yep.
that. And a lot of those bands did the drop down D. So you think that, oh, they're simple. No, they're not simple.
No,
They're not
not at
simple.
all.
And I listened to some Pearl Jam stuff, their riffs and everything. They were like, I mean, listen, George and I were blessed to be in that and during that time and playing music and listening to these guys, because it really did go from 0 to a million in like literally I think 24 hours. Like
Yeah,
Nirvana came in, and the hair bands
that was it. Yep,
that were
were
all over
gone.
the place, unfortunately. And I call them hair bands, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, because they were great musicians, some of those bands. I mean,
Right.
they were really good. But unfortunately, I heard that they had to cancel shows. Like they had shows booked, and people started returning tickets.
Yeah.
Returning tickets. Who does that for a rock band? Because they wanted to go see someone else, instead of they just didn't want to see Winger. Um, but I think that Cherry Pie, She's My Cherry Pie, and then Nirvana Smells Like Teen Spirit were
Yeah.
two of the most opposite sides of anything that you can imagine musically at that point. And
Correct.
that was where it bordered. And
Yes.
as soon as Kurt Cobain came out, the rest of it, was done. Was done.
You're right. No, you're right. Absolutely right. Again, it changed music. I mean, it lasted only for a certain amount of time. Some say that kind of after that whole part of music kind of faded away, kind of rock really kind of faded away probably, but a lot of people say in the late 90s rock was pretty much
But I think hip
gone.
hop really hit really hard during the
Yes, correct,
90s.
correct.
And there was a lot of that. There was also a lot of boy bands in the 90s.
Right.
Remember In Sync and
In Sync and Boys, no,
back,
not Boys, In Sync and what's
back,
the other
back,
one?
Backstreet
Backstreet
Boys,
Boys, and of course
98 Degrees,
in 98 and 1996, what 1995, 96 was what Britney Spears started that whole thing, and
Britney
then there was
Spears.
Christina Aguilera and all these other ones that followed
Yeah.
her.
There was um what was the other one? 78 Degrees. They weren't as hot, but they 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 were just cool enough, but just hot enough that you can take it. They were sort of like light rock.
But they also gave you this type of
It gives me a Meatloaf vibe. So George now is using all the clips of things that I've said that really make no sense. So Meatloaf, there's another band that
Meatloaf.
we haven't talked about.
Well, we got to do a thing on him.
Yeah, he was freaking awesome, Meatloaf. Yeah. So they should be like, see, that's Meatloaf also took risks,
Yes, he did.
right? I mean,
Yes, he did.
who would do a whole album, about a bat out of hell, and then do another one
And
right
then do another
afterwards?
one. Exactly.
That's even bigger than the first.
Do you remember when that song came out? I would do
Of course.
anything. That song, they played it literally like every
It was
hour.
all the time. It was
Holy
actually, I
cow.
did not like that song because it played it so
I
much.
liked it at the beginning, and then they played it so much that I
was
hated
just
it by
too
the
much.
end.
Yeah, it was too much. and then you never found out what the hell
The
did you
hell thing.
want to do.
Do exactly.
Just do it. But anyway, that was part of the era, and I think because of the streaming services and because we have this ability that we can actually research music, I think one of the good things to come out was Pandora, because
Yep.
Pandora takes a lot of the music that you enjoy, and it takes those elements and has some kind of an algorithm, and it spits out new artists that sound like that,
Or like similar,
that sound
yes.
like that. And I think that that's really an important thing
It's kind of like
for,
YouTube.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
algorithm.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, YouTube and all these things, So yeah. All right. Well, we're at the top of the hour here. That's a good place for us to end. We appreciate everybody taking the time to spend with us and talk about music. And let us know what your thoughts are. Just write it down there in the comments if you think we're crazy or we're nuts or whatever. Send us a message, or if you have any other ideas for future shows of things that you think we should cover. We'd love to hear that as well. We have a lot. We're very open to that as well. You can always email me at johnhenrysoto@protonmail.com. You can also visit us at counterpartsshow.com, and you can follow our new website, and we have a lot of new material on there and stuff. And eventually we're going to get some merch that we're going to put up there again. We had some merch, but the merch company was a little bit bogus, and we decided to move on. So we're
They
getting
got 3 to 6 now. 3 to 6 in jail. So
yeah, they had issues, my friends. I was wondering, why were we paying them in meatloaf? I don't know what that means at all. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for tuning in. We will see you all next week. Take care. We love you. And as always,